All right, I think, are we on? We're on. Hi, everyone. We're going to wait just a couple of seconds here and get started. Or are we going to start now?
Yeah.
No, go ahead and get started now.
No, just
a
few minutes.
Wait a few minutes.
I can see it.
Okay, great. Oh, somebody raised their hand.
It's okay. We're going to worry about that. Welcome, everyone. We're just giving people a few minutes to log in. Thanks so much for being here today.
All right, hello everyone. I think we're going to get started now. Thank you so much for joining us for our Lobby Day info session. I'm Kimberly McCullough. I am the Policy Director here at the ACLU of Oregon.
And I'm Ricardo Luján Valerio, the Policy Associate here at the ACLU of Oregon. Both Kimberly and I work together in the Oregon Capitol to fight for your rights.
That's right. So every other year, the Oregon legislature gets together for a long session. That's 6 months that they get together to pass laws that have a really huge impact on all of our lives. And when that's happening, we travel to Salem every day to talk to legislators about how the new laws that they're considering impact civil rights and civil liberties related to a really broad range of issues. That includes criminal justice reform, disability rights, free speech, LGBTQ rights, privacy and surveillance, racial justice, student rights, reproductive freedom, prisoners' rights, police accountability, and even more.
It's a huge amount of work, and that's why we need your help. That's also why we're so excited that you're watching this webinar and will be joining us in Salem for our Lobby Day on Monday, February 18th, which happens to be President's Day. If you haven't already RSVP'd for Lobby Day and you plan to join us, please register as soon as possible. If you go to our website at aclu-or.org and then click on links, you'll find a link to the ACLU of Oregon Lobby Day, and that's where you can register.
So the reason that we're hosting this webinar is to give you a preview of what Lobby Day is going to be like and what we're going to be advocating for together. Before we dig in, I want to walk through a little bit of our webinar experience. So first of all, our agenda. We're going to go over Lobby Day briefly, and then we'll pause and answer any questions that you have. We're then going to talk about our priority bills, and finally we'll answer more questions. So the Q&A feature that you have, it allows you to ask questions during the webinar. So to do that, you want to click on Q&A at the bottom of your screen to open the Q&A window. You type your question into the Q&A box, and then you click send. And feel free to send a practice question now, or if you'd like to say hello, you can. And then after each of our sections, we're going to pause and answer questions that you have. So the goal here is to give you enough information to make you feel as comfortable as possible when you're at the Capitol with us. So we're going to jump right in. So first of all, what's Lobby Day?
Well, Lobby Day is a time when you can come to the Capitol with us and meet your legislators, or with an important staffer within that legislative office, to let them know what you support and what the ACLU is working on. We'll also let them know how you feel about the important issues we're going to be talking to them about. We've already set up the appointments, and we've picked a handful of issues to advocate for: youth justice, immigrant rights, and district attorney report.
So for this webinar, first we're going to talk about the schedule and the logistics, and then about the fun stuff, the policy that we're going to be advocating for. So starting with the schedule, which you should all see now, we're going to start bright and early in the Capitol at 8:30 a.m. at First United Church, that's very close to the Capitol. If you're driving yourself to the Capitol, please make sure that you arrive on time. It's really important that we get you checked in so that everyone is ready for our training that's going to start promptly at 9 o'clock. So really try to get there at 8:30 so that you can get through that process.
Yeah, and then at 9 a.m. we're going to start our training to help you prepare for the rest of the day. We'll talk through all the logistics in greater detail than we will tonight, do a deeper dive on the issues we'll be advocating for as well. Then we'll break out into our groups. Each group will have a lobby day leader and other people who are represented by the same legislator. Once you are in your group, you'll get a chance to role play your meeting with your legislator. Your lobby day leader will also have a list of your meetings, so you'll be able to plan when and where to meet throughout the day.
So at 11 o'clock, that's after our training, we're going to all head over to the Capitol building. In addition to attending your meetings with your legislators and their staff, you're going to be able to tour the Capitol, attend hearings, and even watch the legislature just debate bills on the floor of the House and Senate. There's galleries above the chambers, and you can go up there and watch what they're doing. It's really fun. So we'll also have a rally at the Capitol steps. That's going to happen at 12:30 in the afternoon, and it's going to be followed by a group photo. So make sure to join us at the rally, and then immediately afterwards, we'll make an announcement and take a photo. We're also going to be providing everyone with box lunches. You're going to be able to pick those up anytime that you want between 11 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. in room 167 of the Capitol building. And then at 3:45, that's when we're going to be done for the day. All of the meetings will be done. And for those of us who are riding the buses from Portland and Eugene with us, you'll be able to you'll be taking off then. So we're going to go over all of this again in our training. And we're going to have maps and schedules and information printed out for you. So you don't need to worry about remembering everything. This is really just to give you a preview.
Definitely. And before we dive into the policy, we thought it'd be a good idea to go over what a meeting would look like. So as we mentioned before, each group will have a lobby leader. You'll meet up with your group near the legislator's office about 15 minutes before the meeting, just to make sure everyone gets there on time and you are prepared to go. After you go into the meeting, your lobby leader will introduce the group and let the legislator know that you are there to represent the ACLU. You'll then each introduce yourselves and share a few sentences about why you support the bills we are lobbying for. Your legislator will likely also want to share their thoughts with you.
So at the end of the meeting, it's really important to thank them for their time. And then after the meeting, you're going to go with your group and find somewhere that's as private as you can find to debrief with your group and then write down notes about your meeting so you can get those notes back to us, which is incredibly helpful. So just one thought about that is that the Capitol building has a whole lot of folks in it. When you're having conversations in the hallways, you really never know who the people are that are near you and who they're connected to. So just think about that when you're having conversations. It's important to be somewhat discreet and just think about what you're saying. And remember, for the lobby day meeting the meetings with your legislators, when we have our training, you're going to be able to do some role play with your lobby day leaders. So you're going to get a chance to be able to really practice this with your group.
Yeah, and we also thought it'd be a good idea to go over some of the important rules when you're talking to your legislator tonight. So most importantly, speak from your heart. Speaking your authentic truth is powerful, and so are your personal stories and connections to the issues we're advocating for. At the same time, these meetings go pretty fast. They're usually about 15 minutes long, so it's best to keep your comments short so other people in your group can also get a chance to talk.
Yeah, that's right. So another important thing that we just really want everyone to remember is that we're trying to develop good relationships with our legislators and really help them understand what we care about. And so because of this, we think that it's important to think about the way that we talk to our legislators and how that impacts them and how it impacts the way that they hear from us. So along those lines, it's really important that we're always very polite, that we don't interrupt our legislators if they're talking, and that we don't get into arguments with them. They're not always going to agree with us about everything that we're talking to them about, and that's just sort of the way it is, but it's super important that we not argue with them. If we get into arguments with the legislators, it can actually damage our relationships, and sometimes it will actually make them dig into their position even deeper than they already are.
Definitely. That's completely right, and instead of arguing, it's going to be most helpful for us if you listen to what they have to say, thank them for their feedback, and then take good notes so that you can let us know what they disagreed upon on those policies. Kimberly and I will then try to gather more information so that we can educate the member better, and we can circle back with them and try to get them and bring them along to the policies that we're proposing, or at least we'll get a sense of where they're standing at that time as well. It might also indicate to us whether we should be spending time with that legislator or not. So remember, we don't have to convince every legislator to agree with us. We just need enough votes to pass the bill.
That's right. So another thing that it's just important to mention is that we all try, that we here at the ACLU of Oregon, when we're setting up the lobby day, we try really hard to make sure that you're going to be able to have meetings with your actual legislators. But sometimes what ends up happening is you end up having a meeting with a legislator's staff. Please don't be disappointed if that happens. It happens to us all the time. We have meetings set with the legislator and something happens. They have incredibly busy schedules, and so sometimes they get pulled away at the last minute, or they have conflicts and they're just not able to make the meeting. That's okay, because the legislator's staff are actually incredibly powerful people. Because legislators are so busy, their staff are usually the people who actually tell them what they should be paying attention to, and often the legislator's staff actually helps convince them to take positions on bills and to do things that they may not have otherwise been planning to do. So when we have a good relationship with our staff and we get them to really hear us, then it can actually make a big impact on what the legislator does.
Definitely. So we've kind of thrown some information your way so far. We want to make sure that we check with our groups to see if there are any questions.
Yeah, we have a couple questions.
Okay.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah, important. This is very important. We're going to have t-shirts for you. This is what the t-shirts look like. You can see some folks. Oh, and there's cool stuff on the back. And so we're going to have those for all of you. So so you can, arrive in comfortable clothes. Make sure that you have comfortable shoes, and then we'll have the t-shirts for you. So so you'll be able to really represent the ACLU.
That's right. All right, wonderful.
Okay, so questions. So Gabriel is asking, are there any lobby carpools going up from Southern Oregon? And there are.
And so when you register, my understanding is that there is a thing to fill out about the fact that you want to be able to carpool with other folks. And if I'm understanding right, then we're going to reach out to those folks and connect them. Yep. Is that right? Well, that's what we'll do. Okay.
And we also have a bus from Eugene that still has room on it. The bus from Portland is full.
Okay.
Is full.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Alex is asking, it looks like the webinar is being recorded. Will it be sent out after if I'd like to send it to folks who are interested?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Jane is asking, are we required to ask questions or pose questions with the legislation, or can we sit back and watch? If we don't have many facts about the bill being proposed, should we still comment with our opinion?
Okay, so that's a really, really great question. So I think there's sort of two parts to that. The first part is, you attending Lobby Day, we encourage participation. We encourage everyone to join in and to talk to their legislator when they're in the meetings, but it's absolutely not required. If you're less comfortable talking, but you still want to be present and show your support, that's totally fine. When you get into the groups with your Lobby Day leader, you just let your group know, hey, I'm shy, or I'm not really comfortable talking, and I would just like to be there to show my support. And the other folks that are in the group with you can go ahead and do the talking. So that's perfectly okay. The second question was really about, what you say. And so we're going to go over the policy that we're going to be advocating for today. We're also going to have a bunch of information for you that you're going to be able to look at ahead of time, and materials that you'll have with you on Lobby Day. And then we're also going to do the training to talk to you about the policies again. And so our hope is that by the time that you meet with the legislators, you feel at least comfortable understanding the values that we're trying to convey. it is not important at all for you to need to know all of the intricate details of what the bills do and don't do. That's our job. And it's, passing laws can be complicated. What's most important is that you share your values related to these issues. And we're going to help you to be able to come up with language to express those things. So we'll have talking points. We'll have really simple sentences that if you want to, you can just say the sentences that we give you. You can put them in your own words. Or what we find to be really, really powerful is to tell something about your own experience or your own life or something that is important to you that relates to the things that we're advocating for. So hopefully that all makes sense. You don't have to talk if you don't want to, but if you do, we're gonna try to give you the tools to be able to share your values.
That's right.
Okay, and I'll just say that a lot of people are just saying, hey, hello, and they're really thankful that we're doing this tonight. But Marina asks, where are the Portland bus pickups? And I'll just read the answer from off camera here. By the way, my name's Sarah Armstrong, and I'm the communications director, and I'll be the voice
and
from
she's over here. You just
off
can't
camera.
See
So we're going to send out an email for everyone who signed up for the buses. But the Portland bus leaves from Upright Brewery, which is 240 North Broadway, and it leaves at 7:15 a.m. on the dot. And then it stops in the Tiger Transit Center at 7:45. And then the Eugene bus is leaving from Valley River Center, which is at 293 Valley River Center in Eugene, and arrives in Salem. So that's a little bit of bus information, but don't feel like you have to memorize it. We will email everyone about the bus information when we follow up tomorrow. Okay, and so we have another question. Okay, from Alex is asking, hi, I'm a permanent resident and I'm excited to participate, but am I legally able to participate and expose my ideas to a legislator?
I'm a permanent resident and excited to participate. So, what I'm assuming is they're not a registered voter.
I think so, yeah.
That's
if you're an Oregonian, you are welcome to join us and you are welcome to talk to your legislators. Absolutely. Absolutely. You're a part of our community, and it's incredibly important that your legislators hear from you because you live in Oregon.
I think two things that I would add to that again is that me personally, I'm a deferred action for childhood arrivals recipient. So I'm not even a resident. And I advocate on a daily basis in the building. So to the extent that you feel comfortable sharing your experiences, sharing information that will bring some humanity to the policies that we advocate for, you should do so. And we will try to do everything within our powers to make sure that you feel comfortable doing that.
That's right. That's right. And you can share as little or as much of that information with the legislator when you meet with them as you feel comfortable. So it's up to you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so then we have a few more follow-up questions, but I think I'll just go ahead and type answers and let you all move forward. But
wonderful. Well,
but sorry, really quick, I'll just say a couple people are asking about how you sign up for Lobby Day. And again, you just want to go to our website on our homepage here, aclu-or.org. And if you click right where it shows the picture of people on the steps, join us in Salem on President's Day. That's for Lobby Day. And we will also follow up with everyone on this call with a link.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Great.
Well, let's dive right into the policy, shall we?
Okay, sounds good.
Wonderful. So as we mentioned at the beginning, we're going to be working on three major policy items. The first one being youth justice, immigration justice and rights, and district attorney reform. And we'll kick it off with youth justice to begin with. So we fight for the rights of young people in a lot of different ways. But for our Lobby Day, we're going to focus on the way young people are treated in our criminal justice system. Unfortunately, in Oregon, we really need reform.
It's true. So back in 1994, Oregon voters passed Ballot Measure 11, which created harsh penalties for young people that get caught up in our criminal justice system. Measure 11 was passed at the height of the tough on crime era. It was back in the time when when people in this country believed in the super predator myth. What it did was it caused kids that are as young as 15 years old to be charged and sentenced as adults for certain acts. And when they get charged as adults, they then face harsh mandatory minimum penalties, the same mandatory minimum penalties that are applicable to adults, despite the fact that they are young people. So what we didn't know, or what many people in our society didn't know back when Measure 11 was passed, was that young people have a unique ability to grow and change. Yes, it is important that we have a criminal justice system that includes accountability for our actions, but when we focus on rehabilitation and treatment and not incarceration, we can help young people grow into healthy adults. Our current system is failing us by reducing our resources and, by focusing our resources on mass incarceration. What that does is harm our youth and it harms our communities. And it's having a particularly harmful effect on youth of color, kids with disabilities, Native American youth, and kids who are living in poverty, all of whom are disproportionately criminalized and incarcerated in our current system. That's why we're asking the Oregon legislature to keep kids out of the adult criminal justice system and stop subjecting them to harsh mandatory minimum sentences. We're also asking our legislators to give kids who have transformed their lives, taken accountability for their actions, and learned healthy behaviors. We want to give them meaningful opportunities to leave our correctional facilities, be reunited with their families, and rebuild their lives. There are several bills that are going to be introduced that do all of these things. We've been working very hard ever since last legislative session with a lot of stakeholders to develop really good policy. And the bills that we've been working on have not yet been introduced. We're waiting for the finishing touches to be added so we can tell legislators exactly what bills we're advocating for and what we want them to vote for. But in the meantime, we're sharing our values with legislators so that they understand why this is important to us and why reform is needed.
Definitely. And so another issue that we'll be addressing is immigrant rights. The ACLU is dedicated to fighting for the civil rights and liberties of immigrants and to combat public and private discrimination against them. Since our current president took office, our work in this area has been even more pressing and the battles have been much more intense. That's why we were so excited to see Oregonians use their ballots to protect our values on immigrant rights by defeating Measure 105 in the last November's election. And we are very proud that Oregon has been a beacon of hope during these troubling times. The current president and some Oregonian politicians have targeted our community and played politics of fear and division, but the overwhelming majority of Oregon voters did not fall for it. We are building on this momentum this legislative session. Oregon has a unique opportunity to enact policies that line up with our values and make Oregon a safe and welcoming place for immigrant communities. That's why we are supporting legislation once again to expand on tuition equity laws. Tuition equity ensures that Oregonian dreamers, those are young undocumented immigrants who have grown up in Oregon and attended Oregon schools, to have access to the same educational opportunities as all Oregonian students. Although we've already passed several laws to help make this a reality, there's still more room to develop and improve this policy. So this year, we are going to be helping to expand that access to education and the careers for dreamers here in Oregon. We're also supporting legislation to help ensure that Oregon doesn't contribute to the current administration's deportation machine and a few other important exciting bills that we can't tell you about just yet.
Yeah, there's a few things we're working on that are still not public yet, but we will be sharing those things with you when we see you on Lobby Day. So the last issue that we want to talk to you about and that we're going to be advocating for in the Capitol is district attorney reform. We're really excited that so many of you have already engaged with us on this issue and ready to push it forward again in the legislature. So in the past few years around the country, district attorney offices have been facing increasing scrutiny for very important reasons. People, policymakers, and advocates interested in improving our criminal justice system recognize that prosecutors have an incredible amount of power in the system, but the least amount of oversight, accountability, and transparency among our system's actors. Reform is needed in Oregon, and we're going to be supporting 2 important reforms related to district attorneys this year. The first bill is aiming at improving transparency by requiring DAs to make their internal policies public. The choices that individual DAs make about how their offices run and how their prosecutors operate have enormous life-changing impacts on both victims and defendants. The choices that DA offices make can mean the difference between whether or not crime victims get access to critical services that help them rebuild their lives, whether or not young people are held accountable in ways that protect their future life possibilities, whether people of color are treated fairly in the system, and whether children can keep contact and connection with their parents. What we're asking for is very simple. Every DA office should have a basic set of policies that guide core functions of their work, and those policies should be made available to the public. Remember, your district attorney is an elected official. You should be able to know about their policies that guide their offices so that you can advocate for change.
That's right. And the second district attorney policy that we'll be promoting will be on plea agreements. Close to 95% of cases in Oregon's justice system get resolved through a plea agreement. In these cases, criminal defendants are often required to waive important constitutional rights and access to rehabilitative programs as a condition of their plea agreement. That's just unfair. Our constitutional rights are incredibly important, and we shouldn't have to give them up in plea agreements. And the waiver of programs, which have been designed by this legislature to encourage rehabilitation and to help put the lives of criminal defendants back on track, it's counterproductive. We supported a bill last session that addressed this important issue. We managed to get a small piece of it passed, but most of it was amended, and we'll be trying again this session.
That's right. So that's a general overview of the issues that we're going to be advocating for at Lobby Day. So in summary, we want to make sure our juvenile justice system is focused on rehabilitation and keeps young people out of the adult criminal justice system. We want to make sure that Oregon is a safe and welcoming place for our immigrant communities. And we want to put important reforms in place to make sure that district attorneys are transparent and accountable to the communities they're elected by. We're going to have more information about all of these policies that's going to go up on our website before Lobby Day happens. We're also going to provide you with important talking points and suggestions about how you can share your thoughts and values with your legislators. And we're also going to make sure to go over all of this again during our Lobby Day training. And then you're going to have a chance to role play and practice your meetings with your legislators before this happens.
We know this is a lot of information to go your way.
That's why we're doing it early.
That's why we're doing it early, and we hope that this has been helpful for you. And so right now we're going to try to get some more questions answered your way.
Yep.
Okay, so one person does have their hand raised on the phone line, and we can take a question that way. But I'm going to go ahead and lower your hand for now. If anyone does have a question and they're not able to use the typing, go ahead and raise your hand again, and we can try and connect that way. That can sometimes be complicated.
Okay.
Okay, so A. Meyer shared that it's free parking on President's Day.
It is.
In streets and lots, not garages. So that's one of the reasons we picked President's Day.
That's right. Yeah, parking in the Capitol can actually be a little bit difficult on a normal day. So President's Day, it's free.
But while keeping that in mind, we do encourage carpooling because as you can imagine, there's going to be a lot of traffic going on President's Day. And there are going to be a lot of people at the Capitol. So if you do have the opportunity to carpool, you should definitely consider it.
And we care about our environment.
That's right.
Okay, and then someone mentioned that there was loud typing, and that was actually me, so I stopped typing.
Sorry about that, guys.
Okay, and then Gabriel and Linda both are asking for the link to sign up. And so Doug Brown is also in this room, our communications associate, and he shared it in a question of his own. So if you just scroll through the questions, you can find the link there, but we'll also follow up via email. Okay, so Gabriel also asked, will there be transcripts for deaf, hard of hearing to have access to the recording? We can, for this, we can share the script.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
definitely.
have the script. We're happy to share it.
And anyone else who, if there's any accessibility needs, there's a spot on the form to fill that in. So please register and fill that in as soon as possible so we can do our best to meet everybody's needs.
Yeah, definitely. Just please let us know.
Okay, and Lucy's asking if folks want to read up ahead of time on any of these various measures, where should we go?
So we are going to share more information on our website. We're definitely going to do that before Lobby Day. Do we have our one-pagers up yet?
We were going to follow up on
We're
email.
going to follow up by email. Yeah, so we'll follow up by email. We have some of the information put together. There's some information that's still developing, so we're going to get it to you as soon as we can.
One of the biggest challenges that we have to face is the fact that, as we mentioned earlier, a lot of these policies are not yet introduced, and so a lot of the information is just
in
not
development.
It's
Yeah.
in development. So definitely bear with us. We'll have information for you
Yeah.
before your meeting, and you'll feel prepared.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jane asks, currently, are there any policies put in place for our district attorney to maintain transparency regarding their internal affairs?
Not really, no. That's why we're trying to advocate for change. There's so much that we don't know about the internal policies of district attorney offices. I mean, so I guess let me amend my answer there. It depends on which office it is. There are some district attorney offices that have policies that they will provide to you if you submit like a public records request. We actually did a project recently where we submitted public records requests to all 36 of our elected district attorneys. What we got back from their office was a wide variety of responses. There are a small handful of offices that have a whole bunch of policies. They're very thorough and very helpful. There are other offices that only have a small number of policies, and then there's other offices that either have no policies that are written or that just simply did not respond to our public records requests. So it's really inconsistent depending on where you are. And what I have heard from criminal defense attorneys is that they when they're interacting with district attorneys, that they sometimes will, ask, so what is your policy on what happens with a case like this? And sometimes the office might have a policy and the district attorney doesn't even know about it, or the deputy DA doesn't even know about it. Sometimes they do have policies, sometimes they don't. It's just really, really inconsistent. And we want everyone, all the actors in the system, and then also the public, to just know what those policies are, because that way we can actually interact with them and we can advocate for change. That's right.
Okay, somewhat related, Joanne's asking, regarding the DAs, it seems unlikely that issues like racial disparities, you noted, would be covered in written policy. How can we make their unspoken policies transparent?
Right. So there are a variety of different things that we want to do related to district attorney reform and accountability. I think that when it comes to racial disparities, there is in general, what we have found in other areas of the criminal justice system is that data is really what is most helpful. And even in the state of Oregon, there have been a few times and a few places where there's been analysis of the actual data of who's getting charged with what, who's getting what sort of a sentence, who's getting what sort of a plea deal. That data, it can be incredibly valuable, and we do actually want to eventually require more data and reporting by district attorney offices. We've been working on policy on that in that area, but we're not quite. We don't have the policy quite nailed down yet to introduce a bill. But that's a really good point, and this is a long game. I think there's a lot of policies that are going to need to be enacted, and that's one we definitely want to work on.
Okay, so 2 questions about youth justice. the first one is about how many youth 15 and older are currently charged as adults in Oregon. And the second one is, are the juvenile justice reforms looking to be retroactive? And those are from Jane and Michelle.
So those are super, super good questions. For the numbers, I don't know off the top of my head, but we can look that information up. I know that we have it in our materials, and we can try to follow up on that. And then the second question was about retroactivity. So the retroactivity piece is complicated. We have been advocating for retroactive policies. At this point, it's looking a bit unlikely that that's going to happen this legislative session. And part of the reason for that, or the main reason for that, is that there are provisions in the Oregon Constitution that make it extremely difficult to retroactively change a sentence in a criminal case once it has actually been put into place. And that's deeply unfortunate, but it's in our Constitution. And that makes us very sad. That said, we don't think that it means that we should be hopeless. So we are doing research and trying to figure out if there are some areas where we actually can get retroactivity. If there are, we're just going to keep pushing for that. And then there are also other options, right? If the legislature changes its policy, it is also possible that we could go to the governor and advocate for her to either commute or reduce sentences of people who are incarcerated. And there are also some other creative ways that we can try to address that. But it's a very good question, and it does match with our values, and it's what we've been advocating for.
Okay, 2 questions about Lobby Day, sort of how it works. And I'll just give them to you at the same time. One is, are there leave behind materials for legislators? And the other is, do we typically see an even distribution of people per legislator? And they're imagining that there'd be more for some and others. Is it helpful to potentially talk to another neighboring legislator to your own district? Or is that, or what do we do there if they want to know?
Definitely. So number one, to the literature that you might leave behind, you're definitely going to be provided with multiple pieces of literature that you'll leave with the legislator, so that they'll have more information and background about the policies we'll be advocating for, as well as contact information for both Kimberly and I. So as we stated, if they are asking a lot of questions, even if they're asking technical questions, you can tell them, well, you can reach out to Kimberly McCullough or Ricardo Lujan. They'll be able to provide you with more information. That's probably going to be one of the crucial aspects in your meeting, is that if you feel as though there's a question or a time in which you can't really answer or feel comfortable answering it, that material, that literature is going to be able to direct them to us, and we can follow up with them.
That's right.
To the second point,
that was the second question was about the number of people attending each meeting. It's going to be different.
It's going to be different.
And that's fine. Legislators really want to meet with their own constituents. And so even if some meetings only have a couple of people and other meetings have a ton, that's okay. In some ways, the meetings where there's only a couple of people can be a little bit more you get a little bit more interaction and maybe a little bit more quality one-on-one or two-on-one or three-on-one interactions and conversations. And then there's the other meetings where there's a whole bunch of people. It can be really fun and exciting, but yeah, so we'll want you to meet with your legislator.
That's right. And again, you'll have time to role play these scenarios. And during that role play, you're able to really divide the work on folks that should be speaking, folks that just want to kind of see how that process goes, that want to take a lead on a certain topic. Again, you'll be talking about specific issues and not just one of them, so you can take turns on speaking. There's different ways in which you can approach those conversations.
That's right.
Okay, and I think this will be our last question, though I will say that Alex shared that for those who are driving, Macy's parking lot is free and huge. And it's just a couple of blocks, they say. And someone earlier asked about where the bus comes from in Eugene. We did say that, but we'll also follow up via email with that information again. But for our final question, when was the last time a bill focused on district attorney accountability?
Well, so one of the bills that we're advocating for that has to do with plea agreements and what can and can't get waived in a plea agreement, that bill actually was introduced last session, and it was a really big bill. It had a whole bunch of things in it, and basically what it said is, you know, we have all of these constitutional rights, and then the legislature has created all of these different programs for people who go through our criminal justice system, and that you shouldn't be required to waive all those constitutional rights and your access to those programs in a plea agreement. You just shouldn't, it's not fair to do that. So that bill was really big. It got narrowed down and only a tiny piece of it passed. And we're going to be advocating for the rest of it this session. So that was a DA accountability bill. But beyond that, really like focused bills on district attorney reform are actually very new and novel in our criminal justice system. And we in Oregon are actually we're really pioneering some of this stuff. That plea agreement bill, as far as I know, there are no other states in the country that have passed legislation like that. And then the bill that we're advocating for this session around making them make their policies public. As far as I know, there is no legislation like that that has been introduced in other places in the country. We do know about a few other places that have been just recently focusing on district attorney reform. I believe that it was New York State that set up a independent sort of oversight commission or an agency. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but they're doing independent oversight of their district attorneys because there were some DAs there that were engaged in some misconduct, and I think that it caused a big stir, and their legislature was like, wow, we really need to do something about this. But this really is a new area of reform, and we are sort of trying to pave the way for this to happen, for reform to happen in Oregon and in other places in the country.
That's right. And in that spirit, I do want to say that a lot of the policies that you'll be helping us advocate for, they're really pioneering a lot of things across the nation, both in youth reform and in DA reform, immigration rights. These are all things that are fairly significant. And so, again, we do want to thank you for wanting to participate with us on President's Day to advocate for these very, very large and important policies. Again, we are going to be wrapping it up pretty close. I want to remind you all to RSVP on our website. Again, that's aclu-or.org. There should be a link on the screen right now. Yep, you'll be able to see it. Click on that specific picture. You'll be able to put down your information. And most importantly, when you register, it'll let us know what you need from us so you can get much. So please RSVP if you haven't done so. Anything else?
I think that's it. Thank you so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate it, and we're so excited to see you on Lobby Day.
That's right. Thank you, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye. It's still on there.